Hello, hello, hello. Thank you for joining us for another podcast of The Healing Place. I am excited to bring you another exciting guest who has tons and tons of information that will help us on today. Again, I am your host, Brianna, and we are going to go ahead and jump right into the show. And I'm going to have Dr. Tara, who is our guest today, introduce herself, and we're going to ask her some questions, and she's going to lead us into a place of healing and restoration. So I'm excited. So Dr. Tara, if you can introduce us and tell us all about your work.
Thanks, Brianna. I'm excited to be here. I really love any venue that is helping people get in touch with what's going on within them. As we all know, our conscious mind is 5 to 10% of our brain, and trying to solve our problems with that teensy little bandwidth is really unproductive. So the 90 to 95% of that big thing underneath all that that's calling the shots, the subconscious mind, really needs to be seen, felt, danced with, so that it can change, because the neurology doesn't want to change. Otherwise it wants to go back to the familiar. So my story is that for 23 years I did acupuncture and nutritional medicine. I had my office in Santa Monica, Belmont Shore, Beverly Hills, and taught at UCLA, Emperor's College. Love acupuncture. It's really good at helping neurologically get those pathways open and flowing. I did find, thank God before COVID, that I'm very good at helping go into people's subconscious mind, finding what is the root of the reason that is causing them to see, feel, behave in the ways that they don't want, such as panic attacks, eating disorders, tension that they're holding. If somebody's stressed out, as you know, they can cause their own illness. I mean, you cannot heal when you're in sympathetic fight or flight mode. So I found that, most people are like iPhone 14s operating on iPhone 3 technology. It's just not appropriate for who and what you have become. And there's just so much suffering that so many of us, myself included, can transcend if you just find those new neural pathways and build those, support those, create them so that you're getting the outcomes that you frankly deserve, because nobody wants to live in the 5-year-old that was being traumatized, or, people go back to being in the womb if they weren't wanted. Babies know that. It gets all that stuff, the body keeps the score.
Mm-hmm. So tell us a little bit, because you were talking about one of the podcasts that I had earlier about trauma and things of that nature. So tell us, how can someone who continues in a loop of trauma, abusive relationships, or just attracting toxic men, how can they break out of that?
Great question. Phenomenal question. So there are a lot of tools. For example, I do sessions with people, and in 2 hours I can help them get to the root of an issue. I make a recording for people so that they listen to it as they fall asleep at night, because that's a really impressionable time where you have access to the subconscious mind. And then I give people a high performance planner, and they track their progress, because I'm looking for measurable results. I don't want just, oh, I feel a little better today. I want people making significant changes. And then I find that if the process is repeated not once, but twice over 90 days, that packs a really powerful punch. I do have many people who report amazing results in one session, but I don't want to lose those people that really need those new neural pathways, because if you've been firing and wiring the same powerful, emotionally charged thing for 40 years, it's really hard, no matter how hard you try, to change that. So meditation is a great tool. Acupuncture is a great tool. But I really do feel like getting into the subconscious, you can get there with meditation, but you have to be really, really committed. And as Dr. Joe Dispenza has measured, and I was part of this study, it was about 15 months ago, January of last year. he actually measured the microbiome, which we all know is critical to good health. And there were significantly measurable changes in 7 days from the beginning of the meditation intensive till the end. And you know, scientists have never done this before. And this is data that the scientists are literally, none of them were meditators before starting this, and they're all meditators now. It's like, how would we not be? We know that this is life-saving, and they're looking at the effects that it has on all these different issues, whether it's stress, anxiety, irritable bowel, you know, this whole list of things. And meditation is helping all of them. And what's kind of cool is you don't even have to think you're doing it properly. If you commit to that quiet time, you know, allowing the monkey brain to slow down, check in with your breath. It's truly being present. If you can if you can train yourself to be mindful and present, and it would be so lovely if we were taught this as children. So it's really exciting when I work with a parent that has young kids, because it's changing generationally. Kids aren't going to do what you tell them to do. They're going to do what you model. And if they see mom or dad, you know, being calm, reacting in the present, not being triggered by all kinds of crazy things from the past, dealing with things appropriately in the present moment, and also being able to enjoy the present moment. I have a lot of parents whose kids are going, actually, I just worked with a nanny. She had the worst case of social anxiety I've ever seen. I mean, she literally could not make eye contact with me when she came in. She had no contact or relationship with adults, even going to the market. She just would not make contact with anybody other than kids, because she felt safe with kids. And she's a wonderful nanny. But now, I mean, literally 90 days later, she's flying across the country, never been on an airplane before. Never stayed with people she barely knew before. You know, she posted a picture on social media with her, you know, her hair in the ocean breeze, and she's like, I have beach hair and I don't care because I'm in my happy place. I mean, this was unheard of, because, and you know, it really takes commitments. I work with people who have an 8, 9, or a 10 need to change, and an 8, 9, or a 10 desire to change, because you do have to be motivated. The brain, you know, under stress, it wants to sit in front of the television, drink a beer, and fall asleep.
Yeah. And I'm really big on meditation. So I'm glad you're bringing this out. And I'm glad because it sounds like we hold some of the same values, because I really do. When I say I am a confirmed and a true believer of meditation. So from my faith tradition, I believe that you must meditate. And if you can discipline yourself to meditate, you will find that your life will be completely different, because you have to, how can you, if you function without meditation, then you get to the place where you start disciplining yourself and being intentional about meditation, then guess what? You can really meditate in any situation.
Absolutely. I have a friend, dear friend. In fact, when I was hosting a radio show out of Angel Stadium for years, he was one of the very rare guests. I had him on 3 times. I don't think I had anybody on 3 times. And he goes into prisons and teaches prisoners how to meditate. He won the PASS award, which is a prestigious award for helping prevent recidivism. And Oprah did this too. She went into prisons and literally transformed lives. And it's miserable as they're starting to go through this process, because when you have to sit with yourself, they did a study, and Brianna, you would not believe, they actually found that when people are forced to sit there with their own thoughts, they would rather inflict pain on themselves than to sit quietly with their thoughts. What does that tell you?
Right. But if you think about it, that's why during COVID, you had many people, the rise of addiction was rising. The number of people who went to addiction rose. That's what I'm trying to say, because you had to sit there with yourself.
Yep.
There was no space filler.
Yep. Or they overate. The gyms were shut down, so they couldn't exercise. That was an outlet that was cut off. So you're right. It was a really formula for not good outcomes for most people. I chose a different path. I'm like, all right, if I've got this extra time on my hands, since I had a medical practice, I can't go treat people. I figured, all right, I'm going to take this time and meditate more. I'm going to figure out a way to exercise at home by myself, because there's lots of ways to do that. There's ways to stay in shape. So I'm going to get in better shape. I'm going to eat better. And I'm going to take this me time and, upgrade things for me, so that, because a lot of navigating through times like this, I really strongly believe is getting really clear on, what is your mission? What is your path? Because we all have one. If you're breathing, if you're alive, if God gave you life, you have gifts.
Yes.
And the clearer, the calmer you get, the more powerful you get, the more your heart and brain coherence gets stronger, the more those gifts can come to you, the more you can manifest them in the world.
Oh,
Like
yes.
the gal, I got to throw this away. The gal with the social anxiety who just went to, on her first trip, she's dropped into being herself, and people are looking at her going, gosh, you're magic, because they would find themselves, lost or whatever. And she would just say, well, blah, blah, blah. And she would make it come into fruition because she was in that proper frequency.
Yeah. And and like you said, I love that, because I just preached a message, and involved in that message was, you have a lane. You have to get to a place of discovering your lane and mastering your lane. And how can you receive your instructions? How can you receive any of what you're supposed to do if you don't take the time to sit and meditate? You can't hear if your brain is constantly busy.
And life is like this giant puzzle, and you have a unique piece, and we need you to step into your piece. And it's amazing how, like, if you've ever been to an amazing transformation retreat, when one person sheds the stuff that is no longer serving them and steps up into who they really are, the whole room experiences the relief and the peace and the joy of that.
And sometimes people call it the influence. But it's not that so much of a, I don't want to say just so much, some people just have, it's just some people know who they are. So people gravitate more to people who know who they are, because you are being your authentic self then.
100%.
But when you don't know who you are, you kind of fumble around the world, and you might hit and miss there. But you getting to that meditation is so important. And like you said earlier, I love the fact that you said, because that's my motto as a parent. I learned that early on, being a single parent, that children model what they see, not what you tell them.
100%.
You can tell them all kinds of things, but they're going to go out and do what they see you doing. So be your best self.
I'd love to add 2 more tools that are totally free and available to everybody. One is gratitude. Because when I'm reading a book right now, and oh gosh, I'm so embarrassed, I'm not remembering the title of it, but this is a person who went through a terrible medical issue, and when you're faced with losing your life, all of a sudden you start really, 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 really appreciating it. And there's so much blessing that we have, and we don't appreciate them until we're on the verge of losing them, which is such a shame, because if we could experience the miracle that we are, in fact, I was talking about that same meditation teacher who goes into the prisons. I was leaning on him at the time that I was struggling, and he said, Tara, do you ever just wake up and be grateful for your breath? I mean, truly, breathing is, it's amazing. To take in the oxygen from all these plants that have, provided this oxygen, and have it circulate around without our having to do anything, without our having to earn it, to 40 trillion cells in our body that know exactly where this oxygen is supposed to go. And then as they're removing the oxygen, they're taking the toxins out of your body and escorting it out of your system. And all these things are happening without you having to do a thing. If we had one iota of a glimpse of the miracle that's occurring all the time. And, I slip out of it too. It's not like, when I'm stuck in traffic, I'm always going, oh yeah, peace, love, and happiness. But I'm catching myself more and more. And that feels good. Years ago, I worked with a stage 4 throat cancer patient, and he asked me the magic words, which were, what would you do if this were me? Because I'm not in the business of treating cancer, although if I help somebody get healthy and the cancer goes away, that's legal. So I said, well, and I did muscle testing at the time, and I was picking up anger and resentment that he was experiencing. And I said, the anger and resentment that you're holding on to, I said, let it go yesterday. And I said, the people I've seen survive the best, and again, there's a lot more known out there, but this is certainly a thing that people have done successfully, is do organic vegetable juicing for a series of weeks. And he did that. And in 5 weeks, he was cancer-free. I mean, this giant golf ball in the back of his throat shrunk up and went away. And his doctors, he went through about 4 rounds of chemotherapy. He was supposed to do 14. After 4, he did not look good. I didn't think he was going to survive. Fortunately, he didn't think so either. So he said, I'm going to do holistic from here on in. And his doctor screamed at him that if he didn't do his 14 rounds of chemo, he'd be dead in a month. He was cancer-free in 5 weeks. And the crazy thing is they did not even ask him what he did. It's almost like it just drops off the radar screen, which is really unfortunate because nowadays there's so many stories of people who have recovered with, all kinds of ways that they got back into coherence. And that might be getting out of a toxic relationship. That might be getting out of a toxic job, going and living their dreams. There's Anita Marjani's story, which is incredible. She's the one that was riddled with cancer in every fiber and cell in her body, and she had an out-of-body near-death experience, which, by the way, is a very documented thing that's happened hundreds and actually thousands of times and been well documented. But her case was really extreme because every organ system was shut down. It was full of cancer, and she went out and had this experience. And this message came through really clear to her that if she just went back and lived her life fully, that the cancer would go away. And coming back into her body was a really painful thing because everything had shut down. So she came back in and reanimated it, and her doctors couldn't believe what was happening. They didn't even know how to chart it because they've never seen anybody recover from anything like this. But that's just another testimonial to the healing powers of the body. And these stories are all out there. So it's always a personal path to navigate these things according to what, feels right for you, but really dropping in and going with your higher wisdom seems to be a really good formula for people.
Oh yeah. I'm a firm believer too on when you drop things, because I used to work as a chaplain, and I have seen when people sit down and they tell what we call their life story, high blood pressure leave, sugar, diabetes numbers go down, and all kinds of things that have happened because a lot of this stuff is stored up because we won't let go of things that have hurt us, even from childhood. I've seen people who remember things from when they were 10, 8, 5 years old, and it's like you have held on to this thing, and now you're in your 50s or 60s, and it has now manifested into some type of illness. And if you just let it go, you will find that this stuff will go too.
That was the other one I was going to mention, was forgiveness. Gratitude and forgiveness are 2 magical keys. I had a woman come to me once who needed to do enemas every morning, and this was a young woman that had kids and ate really super, super healthy, very on top of things. And, acupuncture was helping, but not solving the problem. Herbs were helping, but not solving the problem. And so I really just sat with her one day and I said, when did all this start? She thought back and she says, well, I had to stay with my in-laws at one point because, we were having some problems with a house that we were going to move into. And, my mother-in-law was just so horrible to me. She says, I just could never let go of that. And I looked at her and I said, yeah, well, you're not letting go. How's that working out for you? Right. And she was Christian based. And I looked at her and I said, I have a homework assignment for you. I want you to not only forgive this woman, but I want you to send her your love. And that's your homework assignment between now and the time that you come back. And good Lord, that made a massive difference in her physical health, because then she was finally able to let go. We think we're punishing somebody else by not letting go, but it's just everything that you project out comes back. So good Lord, send beautiful stuff out, because that comes back too.
Right. And, I want to piggyback on gratitude. I made a comment to someone, and I said, it used to be a time when we would do testimonies in church and somebody would get up and say, I just thank God for life, health, and strength. But now, life, health, and strength, just the fact that I could get up, the fact that I have breath. in my body, and I said, but we live in such a society now that everything has to be this big blah of a thing before you can really be like, oh, I'm really blessed. No, I'm blessed to just get up this morning because somebody somewhere didn't get up. So yeah.
We're this really interesting balance between dopamine. There's a wonderful book called Dopamine, the Molecule of More. And that dopamine has its value because we do want things to improve, and that's not a bad thing. But if you're so addicted to dopamine, like the rat's pressing the lever, like I got to have the dopamine, if that's all of your focus and you can't experience the oxytocin of life, which is the serotonin, the bonding, the appreciation, the joy of seeing a smile on somebody's face, if you've robbed yourself of that experience, it does take a balance. Yeah. You want enough dopamine so that you are inspired to do things and make things better for yourself, for your community, but you also want that oxytocin so that you can, the cells and the nervous system can enjoy that merry-go-round has got to exist in your neurology. And I teach people that all the time. I tell people, your neurological system's like a puppy dog. And if you want a puppy dog to grow up to be this great, protective German Shepherd, you don't take a newspaper out and beat it in the corner all the time. And I went through this a long time and didn't even realize how much self-hatred I had. I mean, I was so hard on myself, and it didn't matter how many awards I got or degrees or certificates or accolades or times on television or whatever, nothing was ever enough. Because I was beating that puppy dog with that paper. And it wasn't until I really learned how to dive deeply into the subconscious and upgrade this stuff that life just got so much better and so much easier. It's just, there's so many built-in wins to doing this work, whatever that is for you, whether it's service or gratitude or forgiveness or meditation, or eating well, taking care of yourself. Self-care is important. You really have to give from your excess. You can't just be that. If you're that woman that's constantly sacrificing and thinking you're doing the world a favor, you're not. Kids, again, they do what they're modeled in. And if you're modeling for your daughters that you have to sacrifice all the time and you're not good enough unless you are, a puddle on the ground with nothing left to give, that's not modeling. Modeling is a strong person that is well nourished, well rested, and has a lot to give from that overflow.
Now let's talk about when you say that, you were at a place where you had to even do this type of work, right? And getting down to the root, what do you find that is the major root to a lot of people's issues? Why they can't receive, or why is it that it's not ever enough?
Right. That's a fantastic question. So it always, I'm going to say pretty much 100% of the time. And the cool thing about this work is I don't have to know what it is. They don't have to know what it is. The subconscious will take us there, because when you're in that relaxed, sort of dreamy, meditative, going in and out of sleep state, when the brain waves have slowed down, then the subconscious is much more accessible. It's really hard to do it on your own. It's not hard to do if you're working with somebody who knows those pathways. My issue was I had a narcissistic father. And when you're with a narcissist, in fact, one of the websites I have is thepainofzero.com, because, if you're with a narcissist, they're a 10, you're by default a 0. And it takes a long time, if you're not physically beaten as a child, you don't really see the dysfunction as clearly, potentially. But it took me decades to figure this stuff out. But there was always that message in there. You're not good enough. You're not okay. Because one minute my father would say I was worthy of being greeted by the Queen of England. And the next minute he'd say, I don't care if you're breathing or not. And so the message that you get is it's not safe. I'm not valuable. just because I am, I have to do something, but I don't really know what to do because nothing I do is really good enough and okay. So again, we all make stories because we have to. We have to be friends with our caregivers. So if they're screwed up, whatever, we don't really get the messaging that that's weird and strange and not okay. They're always going to be God because they provide the food, they provide the shelter, and we better behave or bad things can happen.
Mm-hmm.
Tribally, we also had that, back, we just have this wired into our systems that if we're not acceptable to the tribe, the tribe can be totally screwed up, but you have to be acceptable to that tribe. Otherwise you get cast out and the wolves eat you and, you die. It's the worst thing ever. That's why like public speaking is a worse fear than death, because you're vulnerable.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I'm not sure if I answered that question, but we all have, it doesn't matter what happens to us, it's our interpretation of what happens to us. And there are commonalities in that, and there are differences in that. And it's kind of funny how similar everybody is, but how different everybody is. For example, I have a client who is a very accomplished dental surgeon, and she just didn't feel comfortable asking for money. Highly accomplished. Wonderful, caring, painless, super high-end service. And so we just went back to the root of it. And the root of it was her sister's even more accomplished. I mean, she's a leading cardiologist in the country today. So one time when they were doing their homework, dad said something that just made her feel less than and unworthy. Dad didn't mean to do it, but that's what got imprinted. And so all we did was change that programming. And I called her up a couple of months later and I said, hey, how's that going for you? And she says, oh gosh, I don't have that issue anymore. I go home with more energy. I'm a better wife. I'm a better mother. And I said, dollar wise, what's that worth to you to be able to ask for what you're worth? She says about $10,000 a month. Oh, I have another gal who's a gallerist, and I met her at an event, and she didn't feel comfortable asking for money. She says, can you help me? Because she used to be a lawyer and didn't have any problem asking for money, but selling art, she just felt dirty. She felt wrong. She'd just have to struggle to send out the invitations and follow up. And if it ever came to that moment, like, well, how much is that painting? It'd be like, and she felt terrible because there were artists behind her who needed the money. And if she can't stand there proudly and say, this is what this sells for, then they lose out and, it harms their life too. So we went to the root of the reason, and it was something completely unexpected. She's on my Instagram and on my YouTube. So a lot of these stories are on there at Dr. Tara Perry on Instagram and YouTube. And so you can hear them all. But, again, in 90 days later, she was selling paintings for $30,000 and $40,000 a piece and thought nothing of it. So it's really cool that when you get in alignment and shed all that stuff, take that 150-pound backpack that you've been carrying around and just get rid of it through whatever means, you're lighter, you're more authentic, you're more effective. And, all those opportunities that have been sitting right in front of you now can happen. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And the relationships that don't serve you anymore, those drop away. I don't invite people to make relationships work. If you're being disrespected, if you're being abused, mentally, physically, emotionally, whatever it is, it's time to wake up and see that and go, no, that's not okay. That's not who I am. I'm worthy. This is not a relationship that's okay for me. So I actually have been responsible for some forces too.
I think that is wonderful. So I want some of the listeners that are listening now, if you heard what was said, so this is what I got from this. So if you're in a space right now and you are feeling as though, number one, you're not worthy and you feel like you have to work for your worth, you're in a space where you are in need of healing. That is not normal. You might have learned that it's normal, but it is very far from normal. And it is time, if you're hearing this, it's because you need to hear this and it's time to change. It's time for a better life, and that you can change. You're not too far gone where you can't change. I also want those who, even if you are accomplished and you are wonderful, you know you're gifted, you know that you are good at what you do, and you are struggling with asking for what you are worth, because that is so many. I've been there myself. And so that is so many of us, and you know that you deserve more, but you struggle with asking. You are in a place where you are needing to heal from something that has been evidently in your subconscious. Would you say that, Dr. Tara? Something in your subconscious is holding you back from asking for what you deserve. And so if that is you, please, 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 Dr. Tara has given her websites. We're going to let her give them again at the end of the show, but Dr. Tara, is it .com?
Consulttara.com will take you to me. Nashville Healer will take you to me. But yes, and I'm happy there's 10 questions there that people can fill out and set up a time to talk to me. Yeah, I also, I appreciate, I'm putting out a Tuesday, Tara's Tuesday book reviews, because there's so many great books and so many tools. So every Tuesday on my YouTube channel, there's going to be a book I'm talking about. You know, there's a wonderful book called The Gap and the Gain, because we can't feel good about ourselves if all we're doing is looking at the horizon, and because we never get to the horizon doesn't, it's just this fictitious point out there somewhere that we're headed for. So to feel good about yourself, to get that puppy dog to wag its tail and go, oh, I'm okay, you have to look back in time and measure that way. So have measurable outcomes. There's another book called Atomic Habits. And again, these are all books that I'm going to be putting on my Tuesday book review thing. There's such a wealth of information that if you feel like you're really stuck, like this woman that I just worked with that had the horrible social anxiety, I cannot tell you how many times she said to me, I think I'm just too broken. I don't know that I can do this. But the fact that she showed up at my doorstep and said, I am doing this, you know, the courage, she doesn't even look like the same person anymore. She's glowing. I mean, she was pasty before and she couldn't make eye contact with me. And now she's smiling and traveling and meeting people. And it's just such a joy to see somebody else make that transformation. And if you have gifts and you can help other people make transformations, the giving life to others is another way to expand. God is expansive. Healing is expansive. If you're feeling contraction, that's the wrong direction. The Abraham Hicks has, you know, ask and you shall receive. Whatever your terminology is, this is written in every wisdom teaching. Living by the golden rule is written in every wisdom teaching. So whatever you put out in the world, truly what you sow, you will reap. And the whole world is your mirror. So if you're seeing a reflection that you don't like, go inwards, find out what is that thing that I'm not liking. I'm a huge fan of Byron Katie. She wrote a book called Loving What Is, and she's got simple tools. And if you get the audio version, you can listen to her talking to people. And it's hilarious to listen to people come in, their lives are falling apart, you know, nothing is right. And 20 minutes later, I swear they are laughing, seeing it from a different perspective. So if you can shift your perspective, whatever that is for you, whether it's gratitude, forgiveness, if you can get some help that's, you know, professional and has great outcomes, you know, look for outcomes more than you look for theories, because there's all kinds of theories out there. You know, you know, like all of us, I think we've been hit by MLMs right, left, and center. There's always some new device, some new thing, some new drink, some new elixir that's supposed to take you from where you are to where you want to go. And more often than not, it's disappointing. So get somebody, something that's got a track record for the kind of improvement that you're looking for. And also do the vibe test. You know, does this feel right? Does this make the cells of my body feel connected? And does that feel true to me? Because if you connect to that inner wisdom, it's there.
I always, as a counselor, I always say, you know, everything that a person needs is already within.
100%.
Our job is just to help them pull it out and identify that it's there. So
I have a digital brochure that I go through with people that want to work with me, and I literally have a picture of Glinda, the Good Witch, and the Wizard of Oz with Dorothy, and I say, look, I'm not going to give you anything you don't already have. You're just going to see what it is. It's remembering. The word remember means to put back together. To recognize means to recognize again. It's just the blinders that have obscured that.
Yeah, yeah. And a lot of times people are walking around with such blinders that they don't realize how awesome they really, really are.
100%.
And
100%.
and I also believe that, because of what has been taught to many people, that when they receive good from others, they cannot receive it as being normal. It makes them feel funny because it's like, why are you saying this? Why are you being so good to me? Or, so I want you to get into that if you can. We have about 10 more minutes.
I'm really glad, actually, that was the subject of my mastermind group this morning. I wanted to talk about receiving. I said, most of us are standing in the shower of life with a raincoat on, and we're going, I can't feel the moisture. So it's about shedding that raincoat, whatever that is for you. And if you have an unworthiness thing and you just don't, like somebody that can't receive, I will do this little experiment with them, okay, take a breath in and then exhale. Shh. Keep exhaling, keep exhaling, keep exhaling, keep exhaling, keep exhaling, keep exhaling, keep exhaling. No, inhaling, exhale, keep exhaling, no. And okay, exhale. If you can't receive, do you get it? You're ripping yourself off. You're ripping your cells off. You're ripping life off. Life is a balance between giving and receiving. And it's beautiful that way. It doesn't work if it's all inhale, and that's where the greedy people, mess up. And it's like, why do I have all this stuff? And I take care of myself and I do all this stuff for myself. And I never feel good. It's because you're not giving back.
I think that's really
but I'd say more often than not, and I have worked a lot with these people, they feel bad to get a compliment. I mean, really bad. Like the audio tape that I make is to reinforce the good. Some people have a really big blockage about that because they've got it so wired in there so early on, I'm not worthy. So that's their thing. And if you can feel it, you can heal it. So sometimes people start out so far gone that the numbness is all they can feel, because the only defense mechanism that little child inside could come up with was, I just got to check out. I got to go numb. I can't feel anything. So the first step is just to start feeling, and that might feel miserable at first, but that's a step up from feeling nothing. So if you're, and then again, it's all awareness. It's taking the steps. It's not giving up. It's really having the faith to know that God doesn't create junk.
Right.
If you ask, you will receive, but you got to listen. And it takes commitment, you got to want it.
Now,
you got to want it more than going to sleep.
Yes. Now, do you also teach about the balance of receiving that negative? Sometimes I believe that sometimes we do need that critique here and there. You do need it in order, because nobody is perfect. So do you teach the balance of the two?
Feedback is a gift. In fact, something that you can do that is a wonderful tool is to reach out to the 20 people that know you the best, or whatever that number is. I did this and I said, hey, what is unique about me? What gift do I bring to the world that I make look easy, that other people struggle with? And it was really crazy to hear the responses. It's like, wow, that's amazing. So feedback is a wonderful gift to give and to receive. And if you can ask for it from people that you love and trust, not from the negative people, and really weed those people out. Just you don't have the bandwidth for that. The other question that's useful to ask those people that know you the best are, if you were my coach, what is my blind spot that I'm not seeing? That's another valuable thing, and it's a vulnerable thing, you know. So again, this ask this of people that you love and trust, and not people that are like, well, I would have done it this way. The other thing that I think is really important, and especially in the society that we have currently, it's really important to take responsibility for your life. If life is not, if your experience of the world and life isn't what you want, look inside before you start pointing the finger, because it's well known that if you point the finger out, you got 3 fingers pointed back to you.
Yes.
And Byron Katie's really big on that. So if you do her 4 tools, and again, this is virtually free, all you have to do is get her book and get the tools and learn how they're, but it takes courage, you know, because it's just not, the answer's not going to pop out right away without you getting really kind of raw and honest and going, what is my part in this, you know?
Yeah. Well, thank you. I really have enjoyed you. You have given me a lot to think about. So again, I know that the audience.
I'm so glad to know about you, Brianna, and I love the work that you're doing. I can see that you have a big heart and that you're connecting with people that are really bringing answers to people. So thank you for doing that. Again, my social media information is at Dr. Tara Perry on Instagram and on YouTube, and I am posting a lot of interviews on there. I have gone on to all the platforms now, Spotify and anywhere you get podcasting with Next Level Healing. And again, I'm really into the Joe Dispenza stuff. I love what science is showing. I just interviewed a fellow who wrote a book on the non-locality of consciousness and all the scientific data there is for that. So that's going to be on my podcast as well. So I love anybody that's creating a platform that is truly helping people. And Brianna, thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you. And thank you for what you're doing. Thank you for joining us today. And so you girls already know, girls, women, our audience, for thanking you for joining us. Thank you. So you know where you can find the information. If you did not get to write it down while she was speaking it out, it will be above in the information line. So please go and check out Dr. Tara. She has tons and tons of information. We did not get to spend but a little bit of time with her on today, but I'm telling you, do not waste your time and think about it any longer. Just go ahead and go and hit her up on her links. And I promise you, if you're ready to be healed, if you're tired of what I like to call stinking thinking, stinking behavior, stinking living, then this is where you want to go. So take the time and please pass along the information, and you yourself get involved in becoming your healthy self. Take the time to share this podcast with all that you know. And again, we will join you. We don't know, we have not been able to be as frequent as we have been, but God is revamping up some things that I believe that will bring about another level of healing for us. And so I'm excited about that as well. But please don't forget, please share. And again, can't tell you when we'll be back, but we will be back shortly. And as always, I love you guys. And as always, I am praying for you.